The soldier is well known for his rocket launcher. It lets him rocket jump and deal loads of damage. It's a staple of his kit, but what if we remove that? In medieval mode, the soldier is stripped of most of his weapons, leaving him with only his melees and some secondaries. Today, we'll be ranking these weapons, same criteria as last time in the scout video. The rules are how well the weapon synergizes with the soldier's loadout, how they synergize with a team, and how good they are in a 1v1. Random crits will be taken into account because this is medieval mode. Will the soldier still be a top tier, or will he get demoted? Let's find out. Our first F tier of the series, the gunboats are a staple of the soldier in base TF2. Reducing damage from rocket jumps by 60% allow him to have some of the best mobility in the game, but medieval mode has no way for the soldier to benefit from this item. All it does is just take up a slot that's better suited for something else. For the first weapon in D tier, the base jumper has a very simple stat. Press jump in the air to deploy a parachute. This is a gimmicky item in the base game, as it's overshadowed by the gunboats and is only effective when using the airstrike. In medieval, there's only one use for this item, and it's if you want to avoid fall damage. If you jump off the castle, you could deploy your parachute to make sure you don't take any fall damage, or you could use it if you're somehow launched in the air due to melee knockback. Either way, these two specific scenarios shoot this parachute down to D tier. At least it still has a function. Just like the previous two items, the man-treads fill out a secondary slot to aid the soldier's rocket jumping abilities. But this is medieval mode, so there's barely a reason to use this item. Its stats are that you take less knockback, have more maneuverability when rocket jumping, and you can stomp on people. The last stat is the only way to make use of this weapon in this game type, and you basically have one chance to use the attack, which is falling from the castle. At least you still have your melee, but it's a waste of a secondary slot. These boots suck. The netherite pickaxe isn't that great in this game type. Its stats are that when active, the escape plan lets the soldier move faster when his health gets lower, but the soldier's marked for death and receives less healing from healing sources. The last negative of this weapon is obsolete, since the Crusader's crossbow bypasses the healing penalty, and if you're being healed via the amputator taunt, just switch to your secondary to get healed. The one stat that banishes this pickaxe to bedrock level is the mark for death penalty. You take 35% more damage just for holding the thing. Sure, you can move faster, so you can dodge and weave, but it's not worth it if you're as fragile as the scout. You might as well play as him. The last weapon in D tier. You notice how all of Soldier's meta weapons are low tier in this game type? Weird. Anyways, the Market Gardener has 3 simple stats. You can't deal random crits, you swing 20% slower, but you get guaranteed critical hits if you're explosive jumping. The only possible way to get crits with this weapon, aside from the crits during victory time, is to get hit by the Ulapul Caber. Not only that, but you have to be airborne and land a swing on an enemy. In that exact scenario, the weapon has its only use, but other than that, it's a straight downgrade from stock, since it swings slower and it can't deal random crits. Don't bother with the spoon. The first usable weapon on the list, the Pain Train, has 2 stats. You get a faster capture rate in exchange for taking 10% more bullet damage. The only sources of bullet damage in this game type is Huntsman arrows or crossbow bolts, and even still, 10% is barely anything. The appeal of Pain Train is the higher capture rate. However, the points all cap relatively quickly, and most of the time you're not capping solo and you'll have a teammate or 2 helping you. So the only use for this weapon would just be for last point, since it's the point where the capture rate actually matters. Even still, if you want a faster cap rate, just go scout. You even have the speed to run to the point that the soldier lacks. All you get is a faster cap rate in exchange for being a little bit more squishy to long range damage. Besides, you can only use this weapon on offense effectively. Half the time it's just going to be a liability. The escape plan's former conjoined twin. The Equalizer lets the soldier deal more damage the lower his health is, but he takes less healing from healing sources. Again, the healing thing never comes into play, so we'll just ignore that. In the base game, this is a terrible weapon. You have to somehow get into melee distance with the enemy while being low HP, and you have to hit them while having to dodge bullets and projectiles. In medieval mode, you're always going to be in melee distance with the enemy, so the problem this weapon suffers in the base game isn't as bad. The higher damage only applies when soldiers below half health, so you'll start off fights weaker. but the longer you're in a fight, the scarier you'll get. You'll be like Lucario in Smash Ultimate. You start off weak, but the longer you're alive, the scarier you are. But the reason I said Smash Ultimate is because Lucario sucks in that game, and being low on health still means you're likely a swing away from death. If it was the old school equalizer, then I'd say Smash 4 Lucario. But the random crit damage the weapon deals is nice. It's an underrated option, but not one of the best. It's stock. I don't know what you want me to say. It's got no upsides, no downsides. It's got 65 base damage and 195 on crits. For Soldier, you've got a couple of better options, but at least it can random crit. All of Soldier's backpack items are good. They're unobtrusive since the Soldier doesn't use his secondaries at all in combat, minus the man-shreds for doing your best Mario impression. The buff banner is the weakest of the three though. The buff banner, when activated, grants the Soldier and his allies around him guaranteed mini-crits for 10 seconds. However, to 2 on your own horn, you have to deal 600 points of damage. Mini-crits are nothing to scoff at. It's mostly outshined by the other two Soldier backpacks because they have passive abilities, but the buff banner does not. Use this if you want to go for a more aggressive and overwhelming push into the enemy's last point.
Not.
The first weapon in S tier. The backup is the second of Soldier's backpacks on the list. It grants a plus 20 max health on wearer, which is nice, but the real reason to equip this weapon is for the immunity to crits and the 35% damage reduction that you and your team can use. This lasts for 10 seconds, and it requires 600 damage to charge, just like the buff banner. This item's defensive and offensive capabilities carry this backpack into S tier. You could use the battalion's backup to start pushes or defend objectives. It's a very powerful item and deserving of its tier placement. Whip is a very unique weapon. When you hit a teammate or an enemy spy disguised as a teammate, both you and the person you hit gain a speed boost. That's not all though. This weapon has a hidden upside where the whip has 70% longer melee range. This is the longest melee range in the entire game, so you can take more fights at a distance and harass enemies while they can't do anything about it. You're like a Belmont from Castlevania. Slay the creatures of the night with your vampire killer by keeping them as far away as possible, so you can keep your pressure up while they're forced to retreat. The only downside of the weapon is a 25% damage penalty, meaning it deals a base damage of 49 to enemies compared to stock's 65. As for crits, the whip deals 146 compared to stock's 195. You'll notice the damage reduction, but as long as you keep your enemies away, you'll be untouchable to scale the castle and slay Dracula. The best backpack item for Soldier, and the best secondary, the magic conch shell grants the Soldier passive health regeneration, with 1 HP per second and up to plus 4 HP if you haven't been damaged for a bit. After you deal 480 damage, you can provide yourself and teammates with 10 seconds of a speed boost and health leech. This means that any damage you or a teammate does to an enemy, 35% of that damage also gets returned to the damage dealer as health. This increases your team and your survivability in a fight. The speed boost gives the option to run if low on health, or charge in to win fights. This backpack has the best passive ability, best buff, and it has the lowest damage to charge out of all the banners. This is easily the Soldier's best and go-to secondary in this mode. My favorite Soldier weapon, and the best one in my opinion, the half Zatoichi, is a staple to the Soldier in medieval mode. On kill, the Soldier gains 50% of his health back with the ability to overheal, and it has 50% longer melee reach, so you'll have the upper hand against most classes. An interesting aspect of the weapon is that any Soldier or demo wielding this weapon will instantly one-shot any enemy that also has this weapon equipped. What this means is that if you see an enemy Soldier or demo with a katana, you can hit them once and instantly kill them. It doesn't matter how much health they have, it will be a one-hit KO. Because of that, you can fill up any of your backpacks in your secondary slot with one swing, negating a lot of the effort you need to put in charge for the backpack. However, this upside is also a downside, since you could be one-shot by any Soldier or demo wielding the weapon. This could allow for really cool moments where you and an enemy with a katana duel each other. The downsides of this weapon are practically non-existent. It deals no random crits, has a slower holster and deploy speed, and the user is honor bound. What being honor bound means is that the Soldier must get a kill with the half Zatoichi before you're able to switch weapons. If not, you lose 50 HP every time you swap weapons. Not a big deal. This weapon gives the soldier more sustainability with the health on kill, and it makes it easier with the samurai duel stat and the longer reach. In my opinion, the katana is soldier's best and most fun weapon in medieval mode, so go and study the blade. It's fun to learn. So here are all the soldier's weapons ranked in medieval mode. The soldier is a high mid-tier in medieval mode. Almost every meta weapon from the base game does not translate well into this game type at all. The soldier is more supportive in nature due to the lack of variety for his available weapons, so he's forced to use his backpack items. He helps take charge of fights with his banners, and he could hold his own in a 1v1 with his longer range on 2 of his best weapons. He's slow, but beefy. With 200 or 220 max HP, he'll likely outlast almost every class in a 1v1, but he gets overwhelmed easily due to his speed. In spite of this, the soldier is still a solid pick in medieval mode.